The discovery. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent 15 years listening to the stars, but she'd never heard anything like this. The signal pulsed through her laboratory speakers with an otherworldly rhythm, a pattern too precise to be natural and too complex to be random. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the deep space array's filters, refining the incoming data stream from the Ophiuchus constellation. "Run it through the verification protocol again," she ordered the AI system, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The massive radio telescope complex spread across the Chilean desert continued its silent vigil, gathering whispers from the cosmos. The AI's response appeared on her holographic display. Signal verified. Pattern consistency, 99.99%. Artificial origin, confirmed. Transmission age, approximately 50,000 years. Sarah leaned back in her chair, letting out a long breath. After decades of searching, humanity had finally received its first confirmed message from an alien civilization. The catch: whatever sent it had done so when humans were still figuring out basic tools. Within hours, the Santiago Deep Space Listening Post transformed from a quiet research facility into a hub of frenzied activity. Government officials, military personnel, and fellow scientists poured in from around the world. Sarah watched as her discovery sparked both excitement and fear among Earth's leaders. "The signal appears to be a repeating sequence," she explained to the hastily assembled council in the facility's conference room. A holographic display showed waves of data streaming across star charts. But it's not just a simple beacon. There's complex information encoded within the pattern. Admiral Helena Torres of the United Earth Defense Force leaned forward, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic light. "And you're certain this isn't natural phenomenon, or some sort of echo from our own transmissions?" "Absolutely certain," Sarah replied. "The signal contains mathematical sequences that could only be artificially created. But there's something else." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "The pattern. It feels like a warning." The room fell silent. Sarah manipulated the holographic display, highlighting specific segments of the signal. "These sequences match warning patterns we use in our own deep space communications. Universal mathematical symbols indicating danger or caution. Whatever civilization sent this, they wanted to make sure anyone who found it would understand its importance." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed the room in an ominous glow. Sarah's comm unit lit up with urgent messages from her research team. "Dr. Chen." Her assistant's voice crackled through the speaker. "Something's happening in orbit. The deep space arrays are picking up new signals from all around us." Sarah rushed to the observation deck, followed by the council members. The facility's massive windows offered a clear view of the night sky. At first, everything looked normal, the familiar pattern of stars shining against the desert darkness. Then, one by one, points of light began to appear, forming a geometric pattern above Earth. "Those aren't stars," Admiral Torres whispered. Sarah's tablet displayed incoming data from orbital satellites. "They're some kind of artificial structures," she confirmed. "They've been there all along, dormant, waiting. And now they're activating." The structures pulsed with a soft blue light, forming a perfect network around Earth's orbit. Initial scans showed they were made of materials far beyond current human technology. But what shocked Sarah most was their age. They matched the timeline of the original signal. "We weren't just receiving a warning," she realized. "We were being watched, tested, and whatever sent that signal 50,000 years ago. They're still out there." As if in response to her words, the orbital structures began transmitting. The pattern matched the original signal perfectly. But this time, it contained more, much more. Sarah's translation algorithms worked frantically to decode the incoming data. "It's a message," she announced, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're saying, 'You have finally heard us. Now prepare, they are coming.'" The implications hit her like a physical force. Humanity had spent centuries debating whether we were alone in the universe, sending out messages into the void, hoping for a response. But all along, advanced civilizations had been watching, waiting to see if we would discover their presence on our own. Admiral Torres immediately began coordinating with global defense forces, but Sarah's attention remained fixed on the incoming data. The signal contained more than just a warning. It held fragments of technical information, star charts, and what appeared to be tactical data. "They're not just warning us," she explained to the Council as the night wore on. "They're trying to prepare us." But for what? The answer came 3 days later, when deep space sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from the direction of the Ophiuchus constellation. Whatever was coming, it would reach Earth in less than 6 months. Humanity had spent its entire existence looking up at the stars, wondering if anyone else was out there. Now we knew the truth. We weren't alone, but we might wish we were. As Sarah studied the incoming data, one thing became clear. Earth's response to this crisis would determine not just our future, but our very survival. The orbital structures continued their silent vigil, their ancient technology a reminder that humanity was a very young species in a very old galaxy. But youth had its advantages. We were adaptable, innovative, and most importantly, we had nothing to lose. As the global response mobilized, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if this was what the ancient civilization had been waiting for. Not just for humanity to hear their message, but for us to be ready to face whatever threat had caused them to set up this elaborate warning system. The stars had been silent for so long, but now they spoke with urgent purpose, and humanity would have to learn to listen very carefully to what they had to say. The awakening. The massive holographic display in Earth's Emergency Response Center showed thousands of dots moving through space, each representing a ship from the approaching Nexus fleet. Dr. Sarah Chen watched as Admiral Torres briefed the assembled world leaders on humanity's current situation. In just 2 weeks since the orbital structures had activated, everything had changed. The Nexus, as they call themselves, is a collective of civilizations spanning 3 galactic arms. Torres explained, her voice echoing through the underground chamber. "They've been watching us for millennia, waiting to see if we would discover their presence on our own." Sarah stepped forward, adding to the briefing. "Their message archives show they've done this before with other emerging civilizations. It's a test. They believe that any species worthy of joining their collective must demonstrate the ability to detect and decode their signals without assistance." The Chinese premier raised his hand. "And these void hunters they warn us about, what do we know about them?" Sarah manipulated the holographic display, showing dark regions of space where stars had gone silent. "They're not just a single species, they're a force that consumes entire civilizations. The Nexus has been fighting them for thousands of years, losing ground steadily. That's why they set up these observation posts around potentially promising worlds like Earth." The room erupted in overlapping questions and demands, but a new voice cut through the chaos. "Perhaps we should ask why they need us at all." The speaker was Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's leading quantum physicist. "If the Nexus is so advanced, why do they need a primitive species like ours?" Before Sarah could respond, the orbital structures pulsed with brilliant light. A figure materialized in the center of the room, tall, ethereal, with crystalline features that seemed to shift and flow. The assembled leaders fell silent. "Because, Dr. Webb," the figure spoke, its voice resonating in multiple harmonics, "your species possesses something we lost long ago. The ability to think beyond established patterns." The being introduced itself as Nexus Observer Kayan, a representative of the collective. "We have watched your species climb from stone tools to quantum computers in an eye blink of cosmic time. Your rate of advancement is unprecedented in our records." Sarah noticed something in Kayan's tone, not just interest, but desperation. "The Void Hunters are winning, aren't they?" she asked. "That's why you're revealing yourselves now. You need our help." Kayan's crystalline form shimmed with what might have been approval. "Perceptive. Yes, The hunters have developed countermeasures to every strategy we've employed over millennia. Our technological advancement has plateaued. We have become predictable. Admiral Torres stepped forward, her military training evident in her stance. You're saying humanity's greatest asset is our unpredictability. Your species thrives on chaos, Kayan explained. You see patterns where we see randomness, and find randomness in what we consider orderly. The Void Hunters cannot predict what they cannot understand, and they do not understand you. The holographic display shifted, showing detailed technical specifications of Nexus technology. We offer an exchange, Kayan continued. We will share our advanced technology, and you will share your unique perspectives. Together, we might find new ways to combat the Hunters. Dr. Webb scoffed. You expect us to believe that a primitive species like ours has anything to teach beings who have mastered interstellar travel. Kayan's form pulsed with multicolored light. Let me show you something. The holographic display changed, showing a series of battle simulations. These are actual encounters with Void Hunter forces. Watch how the Nexus fleet responds. The assembled humans observed as Nexus ships moved in precise, mathematically perfect formations. Their tactics were flawless, their responses immediate and coordinated, and yet they lost every engagement. Now, Kayan continued. Observe this. The display showed footage of human military exercises. Ships moved in seemingly chaotic patterns, their formations constantly shifting, their responses apparently random yet somehow effective. Your military doctrine embraces uncertainty, Kayan explained. You understand that perfect order is vulnerable to disruption. The Void Hunters have learned to counter our perfection, but your controlled chaos, that they cannot predict. Sarah watched as understanding dawned on the faces around her. Humanity's greatest weakness, our messiness, our tendency to improvise and break patterns, might be exactly what the galaxy needed. We need your creativity, Kayan concluded. Your ability to see solutions where we see only problems. But more than that, we need your courage to try what has never been tried before. Admiral Torres straightened her uniform. And if we refuse, then you face the Hunters alone, Kayan responded simply. They will reach your solar system in less than 6 months. Without Nexus technology, your chances of survival are approximately 0.003%. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of first contact, imagining ourselves either conquering or being conquered by alien civilizations. Nobody had expected this, being asked to join an ancient collective not as servants or subjects, but as innovators. How long do we have to decide? The U.S. President asked. Kayan's form flickered. The Hunters have already detected our communication. They know we have contacted you. You have until local sunset to give your answer. As the world leaders huddled in urgent discussion, Sarah studied the technical data streaming across her tablet. The Nexus technology was centuries beyond Earth's current capabilities, but the underlying principles were recognizable. They had advanced along predictable lines, building on established foundations. But humanity's scientific development had been anything but predictable. We had taken wrong turns, followed dead ends, and sometimes stumbled upon solutions that shouldn't have worked but did. Our messy, trial-and-error approach to advancement might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The sun was setting over the emergency response center, painting the sky in sheets of orange and purple. Humanity's deadline approached, and with it, a decision that would change the course of our species forever. But as Sarah looked around the room at her fellow humans, scientists, soldiers, leaders all grappling with this new reality, she saw not fear, but determination. We had spent our entire history looking up at the stars, dreaming of our place among them. Now we were being offered that chance, not because of our advanced technology or military might, but because of our uniquely human way of seeing the universe. The sun touched the horizon, and humanity prepared to give its answer to the stars. The trial. The Nexus testing facility stretched across an asteroid in the Kuiper Belt, its crystalline structures gleaming under the distant sunlight. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at a viewport, watching as teams of human scientists worked alongside Nexus engineers, their movements reflected in the facility's polished surfaces. 1 month had passed since humanity's acceptance into the collective, and time was running out. The Hunter fleet has accelerated, Admiral Torres announced, entering the observation chamber. New estimates give us 4 months at most. She handed Sarah a tablet displaying the latest deep space scans. The void between stars seemed to ripple where the Hunters moved, like darkness flowing through darkness. Then we'd better pass this trial quickly, Sarah replied, turning to face the central chamber where the Nexus had set up their first major test. The room housed what appeared to be a simple puzzle, a spherical energy construct that pulsed with complex patterns of light. Kayan materialized beside them, its crystalline form refracting the chamber's light. This is a Hunter encryption node, captured during their last incursion. Our best minds have spent decades trying to decode it. None have succeeded. Sarah studied the sphere, watching as the patterns shifted and flowed. The Nexus had explained that these nodes contained crucial tactical data about Hunter movements and strategies. Breaking their encryption could give the Alliance a crucial advantage. Your most advanced quantum computers have attempted to decode this, she asked, already knowing the answer. The Nexus's computational power dwarfed anything Earth had developed. Correct, Kayan confirmed. We have applied every known decryption method. The patterns are beyond our understanding. Sarah smiled slightly. That's because you're looking for patterns at all. She turned to Admiral Torres. Remember what we discovered about the orbital structures, how they seemed random until we stopped trying to find order in them. Torres nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. You think the Hunters are using chaos as encryption. Not chaos, Sarah corrected. Anti-patterns. They're exploiting the Nexus's need to find order in everything. She approached the sphere, her mind racing. The Nexus has spent millennia perfecting pattern recognition, but sometimes the answer isn't in finding the pattern. It's in embracing the lack of one. She connected her tablet to the facility's systems, pulling up Earth's historical data. Look at human art through the centuries. We started with simple, orderly patterns, but then we created abstract expressionism, jazz, experimental literature. We learned to find beauty in disorder. Kayan's form pulsed with interest. You believe this aesthetic evolution is relevant to decryption. I believe it's relevant to everything, Sarah replied. She began typing rapidly on her tablet, creating a new algorithm. We're not going to break this encryption by finding its pattern. We're going to break it by accepting that there isn't one. The chamber hummed with energy as Sarah's program engaged with the Hunter node. Instead of searching for order in the shifting lights, it embraced their apparent randomness, treating chaos itself as meaningful data. Impossible, Kayan whispered as new information began streaming across the facility's displays. The encryption was unraveling, not through force or pattern matching, but through a fundamentally different understanding of information itself. Not impossible, Admiral Torres corrected, pride evident in her voice. Just human. The decoded data revealed more than anyone had expected. The Hunters weren't just a force of destruction. They were a response to the very order the Nexus sought to impose on the galaxy. They were chaos incarnate, drawn to the precise patterns of advanced civilizations like moths to flame. All this time, Sarah breathed, reading through the decoded information. They've been using the Nexus's greatest strength against them. The more ordered and advanced a civilization becomes, the more attractive it is to the Hunters. Kayan's form flickered with what might have been distress. Then our entire approach to advancement, our pursuit of perfect order, has been making you perfect targets, Torres finished. But humanity never developed that way. We've always been comfortable with a certain amount of chaos in our systems. Sarah continued analyzing the data, her excitement growing. The Hunters can't predict what they can't understand. and they fundamentally cannot understand a civilization that embraces both order and chaos. The implications were staggering. Humanity's greatest weakness, our messy, unpredictable nature, might be the key to defeating an enemy that had stymied the galaxy's most advanced civilizations for millennia. We need to completely rethink our defense strategies, Torres said, already formulating plans, not just incorporating human technology with Nexus systems, but fundamentally changing how we approach combat. Cain studied the decoded data with increasing agitation. The collective council will resist such dramatic changes. Our ways are deeply ingrained. Then they need to decide what's more important. Sarah responded firmly. Their traditions, or their survival. As if in response to her words, new alarms sounded throughout the facility. The hunter fleet had changed course again, moving faster than anyone had predicted. They would reach the solar system in 3 months, not 4. We don't have time for the council to debate, Torres declared. We need to begin implementing changes now. Sarah looked out at the teams of humans and Nexus members working together in the facility. Already, their collaboration was producing results no one had expected. Humans learned to work with advanced alien technology, while Nexus members began to appreciate the value of intuition and improvisation. We passed your trial, she told Cain. Now it's time for the real test. Can the Nexus learn from us as quickly as we're learning from you? The fate of Earth, the Nexus, and perhaps the entire galaxy would depend on the answer to that question. As Sarah watched the distant sun glinting off the facility's crystalline surfaces, she couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Humanity had spent centuries believing we needed to become more advanced, more ordered, more perfect to join galactic civilization. Instead, it was our imperfections that might save everyone. The innovation. Deep in the asteroid belt, a new kind of fleet was taking shape. The ships looked wrong. Their hulls asymmetrical, their formations seemingly random. To Nexus engineers, they appeared broken, unfinished. To Dr. Sarah Chen, they were beautiful. The quantum fluctuation drives are integrating perfectly with the chaos pattern shields, she reported, reviewing data from the latest tests. The hybrid vessels combine Nexus technology with human design principles, creating something entirely new. The hunters won't be able to predict our movement patterns because there won't be any patterns to predict. Admiral Torres stood on the command deck of the flagship, watching through the viewport as more ships emerged from the construction yards. 2 months until contact, and we're rewriting everything we know about space combat. The fleet they were building defied conventional military doctrine. Each ship was unique, its systems deliberately engineered to include controlled random elements. The Nexus's perfect technology had been modified, made intentionally imperfect in ways that only humans could appreciate. The Council is still expressing concerns, Cain announced, materializing nearby. They say these designs violate fundamental principles of ship architecture. Those principles are exactly what the hunters have learned to exploit, Sarah countered. She pulled up a holographic simulation showing traditional Nexus fleet movements. Look at this. Every maneuver calculated to mathematical perfection, every response following established protocols. The hunters don't need to break your encryption. They just need to recognize your patterns. The simulation shifted, showing the new hybrid fleet in action. Ships moved in ways that seemed chaotic, but contained underlying purpose. Their weapons fired with deliberate irregularity. Their shields fluctuated unpredictably. We're not just combining technologies, Torres explained to Cain. We're combining philosophies, your precision with our creativity, your power with our unpredictability. The biggest breakthrough had come from an unexpected source, human music. Sarah had noticed similarities between jazz improvisation and the way the hunters processed information. Both operated on principles that seemed random but contained hidden structure. We're teaching your ships to improvise, she told Cain, leading them to the testing chamber. Inside, human musicians played alongside Nexus quantum computers, creating harmonies that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. The computers learned to break from rigid mathematical progressions, while the musicians learn to incorporate alien harmonics. These sound patterns are being translated into battle algorithms. Sarah explained. Each ship's AI will learn to improvise its responses while maintaining coordination with the fleet. Like a jazz band playing together, everyone doing their own thing but still creating something cohesive. The chamber's walls displayed real-time data as the hybrid systems learned and adapted. Traditional Nexus code, perfect and orderly, began interweaving with human-designed chaos elements. The result was something entirely new, a form of artificial intelligence that could think both logically and creatively. Your species continues to surprise us, Kyan admitted, its crystalline form reflecting the chamber's shifting lights. We thought we were teaching you, but perhaps we're the students. Admiral Torres smiled grimly. We're all students now. The hunters forced us to rethink everything we thought we knew about warfare, about technology, about progress itself. The latest deep space scans showed the hunter fleet continuing its advance. Their ships moved like living shadows, consuming light and matter as they came. But now, for the first time, the data revealed something new: uncertainty. The hunters were detecting the activities in the solar system, but they couldn't seem to make sense of what they were seeing. They're used to civilizations either running away or fighting back in predictable ways, Sarah observed, studying the scans. We're doing neither. It's confusing them. The hybrid fleet grew larger each day. Traditional Nexus dreadnoughts were rebuilt with asymmetrical designs. Human military vessels were upgraded with alien technology that had been intentionally modified to include random elements. Every ship was different, every system unique. But the most radical changes were happening in the crews themselves. Humans and Nexus members learned to work together, each bringing their own perspectives to problem-solving. Nexus operators learned to trust intuition alongside logic, while human crews learned to harness advanced technology in creative ways. 1 month until contact, Torres announced during a fleet-wide briefing. We've torn up every rulebook, broken every convention. Now we find out if it's enough. Sarah watched as the hybrid fleet conducted its final training exercises. The ships moved like dancers in some cosmic ballet, their patterns beautiful in their controlled chaos. They were ready, or as ready as they could be. You know, she told Kyan, humans have a saying: the perfect is the enemy of the good. We've learned that sometimes trying to make something flawless makes it fragile. True strength comes from embracing imperfection. Kyan's form pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps that is why the hunters have never evolved beyond their current state. They seek to consume perfection, but in doing so, they themselves became predictable. The final pieces of the plan were falling into place. Earth's orbital defenses had been redesigned, incorporating random elements that would make them harder to target. The Nexus fleet had been completely reorganized, abandoning millennia of tactical doctrine in favor of new hybrid strategies. 1 month, Sarah repeated softly, watching the fleet maneuver. 1 month to prove that the combination of human chaos and Nexus order can overcome an enemy that has terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Out in the darkness between the stars, the hunters continued their approach. They had consumed countless civilizations, each more advanced than the last, but they had never encountered anything like what waited for them in Earth's solar system, a defense force that embraced chaos as a weapon that turned unpredictability into strength. The final battle would begin soon, and with it the ultimate test of humanity's greatest gift: our ability to find new ways forward when every established path leads to defeat. The revolution. They came like a tide of darkness, a fleet of ships that seemed to consume the very starlight around them. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Earth Nexus flagship Prometheus, watching as the hunter vessels emerged from deep space. Their arrival wasn't marked by traditional faster-than-light signatures. Instead, the stars simply began to disappear, swept away by a wave of absolute void. All ships, activate chaos protocols, Admiral Torres commanded, her voice carrying across the hybrid fleet's quantum communications network. The response was immediate but unpredictable, exactly as planned. Each vessel's AI began its unique improvisation sequence, their movements becoming increasingly difficult to track or predict. The hunters are attempting to analyze our fleet composition. Kayan reported, its crystalline form shifting with tension. The aliens' traditional certainty had been replaced by something new, hope mixed with fear. Sarah monitored the incoming data streams. The hunter ships had paused their advance, their usual aggressive tactics replaced by hesitation. They can't make sense of what they're seeing, she realized. Every scan they perform shows them something different. The hybrid fleet's chaos pattern shields weren't just defensive systems, they were active camouflage, constantly shifting between states of order and randomness. The hunter's sensors, designed to detect and exploit patterns, were being overwhelmed by the deliberate confusion. Now, Torres ordered, begin Phase 1. The first wave of hybrid ships surged forward, but not in the traditional arrow-shaped formation the hunters would have expected from a Nexus fleet. Instead, they moved like a murmuration of starlings, their paths fluid and unpredictable yet somehow coordinated. The hunters responded with their standard tactics, precise, calculated attacks designed to disrupt organized fleet movements. But there was no organization to disrupt, no pattern to break. The hybrid ships flowed around the attacks like water around rocks. They're trying to adapt, Sarah observed, watching the hunter fleet's movements become more erratic. But they can't break free of their own patterns. They've spent too long hunting predictable prey. The battle expanded across the solar system as both fleets engage. Hunter vessels, each larger than a city, found themselves unable to land decisive blows against smaller, more agile hybrid ships. The very qualities that had made the hunters so effective against traditional forces, their ability to predict and counter enemy tactics, had become a weakness. Multiple hunter vessels are attempting to synchronize their attack patterns, Kayan announced. They're trying to create a unified response to our chaos. Sarah smiled grimly. Exactly as we predicted. Initiate Phase 2. The hybrid fleet's movements suddenly shifted. Ships that had been operating independently snapped into perfect Nexus formations, their chaos pattern shields aligning into traditional defensive arrays. The hunters, their systems finally detecting recognizable patterns, surged forward to exploit this apparent vulnerability. Now, Torres commanded. In an instant, the hybrid fleet dissolved back into chaos, but not randomly. Each ship's movement had been precisely calculated to take advantage of the hunters' committed attack. Energy beams and quantum torpedoes struck hunter vessels from impossible angles, their timing and trajectories defying prediction. Their fleet cohesion is breaking down, Kayan reported, excitement bleeding into its usually measured tones. They're unable to maintain coordinated actions. The hunters began to retreat, their perfect formations degrading into desperate individual actions. But the hybrid fleet didn't press the advantage in traditional ways. Instead, they maintained their unpredictable patterns, preventing the hunters from developing effective countermeasures. They're not just retreating, Sarah realized, studying the sensor data. They're experiencing cascading failures in their command and control systems. Our chaos is infecting their network. The hunter ships had evolved to share information instantly, allowing them to adapt to any situation as a unified force. But now that very strength had become a liability. Unable to process the hybrid fleet's actions, their shared network was spreading confusion rather than coordination. All ships, execute final phase, Torres ordered. The hybrid fleet's AIs began their final symphony of controlled chaos, their movements guided by algorithms based on jazz improvisation and quantum uncertainty. Each ship became a soloist in a vast cosmic performance, their actions impossible to predict yet somehow perfectly harmonized. The hunter fleet, for the first time in its ancient history, broke apart completely. Ships designed to hunt in perfect coordination found themselves unable to function alone. Some fled into deep space, while others simply shut down, their systems overwhelmed by input they couldn't process. Victory confirmed, Kayan announced, its voice carrying a mix of awe and disbelief. The hunters are retreating from the entire sector. The bridge erupted in cheers, human and Nexus crew members celebrating together. But Sarah's attention was fixed on the sensor readings. "We didn't just drive them away," she said quietly. "We showed them something they've never encountered before. A civilization they can't consume because they can't understand it." Admiral Torres nodded solemnly. "The question is, what happens now?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. Within days, reports began arriving from across the galaxy. The Hunter fleet wasn't just retreating, it was disintegrating. Civilizations that had lived in fear for millennia watched as their ancient enemy collapsed, unable to maintain its unified purpose in the face of this new uncertainty. "Your strategy didn't just defeat them in battle," Kayan told Sarah as they watched the hybrid fleet return home. "It broke their fundamental understanding of how the universe should work. They evolved to prey on order and prediction, but you showed them a kind of advancement they couldn't comprehend." The victory transformed more than just the military balance of power. The Nexus, which had spent thousands of years pursuing perfect order, began to change. They learned from humanity that true resilience comes not from eliminating chaos, but from learning to work with it. As the hybrid fleet took up defensive positions around Earth, Sarah watched the stars shine with new brightness. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where the combination of human creativity and Nexus technology would open up possibilities no one had imagined before. "You know what the most beautiful part is?" she asked Kayan as they stood on the Prometheus's observation deck. "We didn't win by becoming more advanced or more perfect. We won by being uniquely, imperfectly human." The stars seemed to twinkle in agreement, their light no longer threatened by the encroaching void. Humanity had found its place among them, not by following the established path, but by blazing a new one, just as we always had.